Good evening and welcome to my live stream. I'm Lillian and I'm here today with some questions and answers. Thank you. Welcome. Now, considering what's been going on around the world, it's a great time to really be here and be able to reach out to each other, ask questions, have discussions, and get information really to allay whatever we need answers to. And that's why I'm doing this live show so that we can all have a chance once more to ask questions and get answers. I'm here with a lot of answers, but I know that others also have answers to whatever questions that we have thrown into the forum today. Thank you very much for coming. You're blessed. So the questions that I've come across on my channel, Princess Lillian's Gardens, is what should we be growing going forward? Because everybody is thinking of the best way to be equipped for the next few months, like what we can probably have in the house through shopping or through gardening. And I believe that since we don't have to rush things, one very important thing that we can do is to grow those foods that will come out and we can dry them. Or we could also concentrate on growing trees. It's going to be a mix of things. We can't just leave ourselves growing just one thing, but we should concentrate very much on growing certain plants that will come again and again. One example of such plants is the Jerusalem artichoke. The Jerusalem artichoke would grow very tall and have some tubers. They look like combs, they look like tubers, and it tastes just like potato or yam. The reason why I consider this to be important is that you'd have to look after potato, which you can also grow, and you'd have to look after yam. But the Jerusalem artichoke, you just need to put a few bits and pieces of it in the soil 1 year, and it's going to keep growing year in, year out. Because when you harvest, a little piece will break into the soil again, and that will grow the following year. That's why the Jerusalem artichoke is such a great answer. You can grow it, and if you travel, somebody else can come along and find Jerusalem artichokes and they can harvest it and say, oh, they've grown food in this place. So we can now imagine if 50% of the population, or even less, if 20% of the population decide to start growing Jerusalem artichokes, there will be so many of them such that this will deal with a lot of what people may need. You can use it to make chips, you can use it to make mash. It's just good food, and you can even eat it raw. You can fry it, you can cook it, and you can eat it raw like that. So the Jerusalem artichoke is a very good plant to grow in these times. And the flowers come out, it's a member of the family of the sunflower. So the flowers come out looking like sunflower. It's only very small. It looks very much like the perennial sunflower, such that when I grew it and I grew perennial sunflower, I thought they were the same plants until I tried discussing with someone and I realized these ones with these bigger tubers will probably be Jerusalem artichokes. I took a picture of it and had it identified by someone for me. And then I realized it's Jerusalem artichoke. It's not difficult to get Jerusalem artichoke from the shops or from friends that are fellow gardeners. You would be able to get somebody who would give you a few pieces of Jerusalem artichoke that you can plant in your garden. And if you plant it, it will come up producing these beautiful flowers that make your garden look beautiful and also attract bees. And at the end of the day, when these flowers reach maturity, you want to uproot it and you're getting food out of it. So you see that it's taken care in so many ways. It's for decorating the environment, it's for food, it's for feeding the bees. Because you want plants that are going to feed the bees in your garden if you're growing any other thing. And this is what is going to be the best thing for you to have because it's not going to take up your space without providing you with anything in return. One way in which I would deal with Jerusalem artichoke is to plant it in those free spaces that are like outside that you are not even going to use at all. You can plant it there like a hedge. It will grow, it grows very tall, it grows as tall as 6, 7 feet. It will grow very tall and it produces yellow flowers. This would attract bees and this looks nice. But at the end of the day, you would be able to harvest some food from it. So you see that it's actually a very good idea to grow this plant because it's going to take just 1 year to mature, and the following year you don't have to plant it again. It just keeps coming back again and again and again. I actually didn't recognize it the first time I planted it. I thought I was planting two different types of perennial sunflowers because there was this one that was much taller and it was sturdier than the other type that I had. And I thought, oh, this one has very strong stems until I finally have discovered that it's Jerusalem artichoke. And I said thanks to Kevin because he was the one that gave them to me. And he actually told me they were Jerusalem artichokes. But when they started flowering, I don't expect their flowers to look just like the flower of the perennial sunflower. That's why I couldn't identify that they were Jerusalem artichokes. And right now we have them and it's produced very large tubers for us. It's not as large as a yam, but a lot of it are bigger than what you will have as a potato. So it's just a source of starchy food that we can add to our diets. It's also would have some protein, but it's mainly going to be starch that is inside it. The one thing that we need to consider is that Jerusalem artichokes are heavy feeders. So if you plant them in the ground 1 year, you would need to cut down the leaves and let the leaves go into the soil to replenish the soil again. If not, the quality of that soil will deplete until it can no longer support the growth of the Jerusalem artichokes. They are heavy feeders, just like any other fruiting plant, like tomatoes. Although you don't see the fruit, you think it's flowers. It has big tubers down below, and this makes it to have this heavy feeding capacity to be able to produce that amount of food stored up for people to come along and eat. Another example of what we can grow are what I've mentioned already: the sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes. If you have the space, grow these things. It's actually quite easy to grow them. You go to the shop and buy a whole bag for just £1. It's very, very cheap, but what about the situation where you may not get the chance to go to the shop? So it's not because of the cost of these foods that you are growing in, it's because of the opportunity and the availability to be able to access them. What if you can't get to the shops to buy these potatoes? It's going to be a great idea for you to already have some growing in your backyard. Just one empty space that you have that you're not using. Just make the effort and grow something in there that you don't have to be nursing day in, day out, and all the time. What you just do is you plant it and you make sure it's in very rich, fertile soil and it goes along. The other thing we could be growing in these current times are trees. So what happens is trees take a long, long time to grow. So a lot of people would think, oh, this tree is going to be taking forever before it grows. But it's still nice for you to actually probably go to a shop and buy a tree. This tree is already on a root stock that has been growing for years. So you don't have to start growing it by yourself again. You can just buy this tree that has already been growing for years and you take it home and plant it in your garden and it will start flowering within 18 months. That's the usual length of time it takes for the thing to start flowering when you get the tree. And the fruits will come in so much you would not be buying that particular fruit for that year because you would have enough of it. But what you must remember is these plants need to be fed. You need to feed your plants like your waste food that you eat. Maybe the peels, the rains, and things like that. You've got to remember that the plants also need to be fed because they are growing, they are needing a lot of energy. They will only get this energy from the sun and the soil. Those are the two things they get their energy from, and they will use the air to produce oxygen. It's advantageous because carbon dioxide is just there in the air and there's a lot of it because we as humans and other animals are producing carbon dioxide, but the plants are using this carbon dioxide and they're making their food. So it's just great to see that we can actually have this kind of relationship where what we have as our waste is what they need, and what they are producing is actually what we'll need to balance our own system because we need oxygen continuously. We must not be starved of oxygen for any length of time to remain um, with our well-being. The other thing I want to mention is buying fruits from the markets and from the shops. These fruits would contain lots of nutrients, lots of vitamins. Don't look at a food and consider it maybe on the basis of this one is sweet and this one is not sweet. Whether a fruit is sweet or is not sweet, it will still have the nutrients that it's supposed to have. I'll give as one example the cucumber. When you see the cucumber, a lot of people don't like it because it tastes almost bland. It's quite low on the sugar tasting side. but it's very important because it's an anti-inflammatory. If you take it, it's good for your joints. It helps to get rid of water in the blood system, and so your body is not under a lot of pressure because this thing helps get rid of um, get rid of water from the system. It enables our body to regulate. It enables our system to flush out a lot of toxins that we've taken in. So, what we are going to discover is that these vegetables that we eat, or if you choose to call it fruit, are important beyond their taste. The next fruit I'm going to mention, which is actually in my topic for tonight, is the pomegranate. The pomegranate is packed full of vitamin C. When we buy it, we would really enjoy it. And I'm going to show you the reason why I'm going to show you is because I just discovered that this pomegranate is quite similar to the passion fruit. This is the pomegranate. This is the pomegranate. You can see it's got this little tip, and this is the passion fruit. And here is the pomegranate that I've already opened. I've taken a slice of it to eat. It got red seeds. So you just crack it open after you use a knife to open the first section. Then you can just readily crack it open by hand, and you pick off the seeds. You pick off the seeds into a plate and eat, and that's what you're going to eat of the pomegranate because it's just packed full of these seeds. It's packed full of these seeds, and the juices contain a lot of nourishment for our body. The pomegranate is very, very high in vitamin C, and although it may not be a very popular or very common fruit, why not go around one day during this period that we are all in and get a pomegranate? It's very, very big. I mean, you don't doesn't have to be something that one person would eat. There's a lot of seeds in it, and you'll find that it's actually interesting. It's invigorating to eat the pomegranate. It's one fruit that is not so common. When you're eating the pomegranate seed, there's a hard seed inside. That's the stone. So you should just sort of bite down on it gently and use your tongue and your upper palate to crush the juice out of it, not crushing the seed and swallowing it. 'Cause a lot of people will probably suggest that yeah, you can swallow the seed of pomegranate, and but I don't swallow the seeds of the pomegranate. And I said it yesterday that when I was young, they would often tell me if I eat the seed of a a fruit, an orange or any other thing like that, and the tree will grow out of my head. I know now that that is not going to happen, but the fact that when I was young, when you're told something when you're young and you're told so many times, you actually devise a method for overcoming that thing. So since I've been young and I've been told you should not swallow the seeds of fruits, I've learned how to make sure that when I'm eating a fruit, I don't swallow the seed because they said to me, if you swallow the seed of the fruit, it's going to grow out and you're going to have to stay in one town and you wouldn't be traveling the world. And as a young child, I just thought to myself, boy, I would like to travel the world. I would like to see the Niagara. I would like to see the Greenwich Meridian. I would like to see everywhere just away from where I was living at the time. So if I had a tree suddenly sprouting out of my head and growing up, that will not be convenient at all. That will not be convenient at all. So I didn't want that to happen. So I learned, I devised a way of eating my fruits without swallowing the seeds. I hope you can hear me better now. I've adjusted my camera, I mean my microphone to another location. It was being covered by the PC before. So what I found out is that a lot of people just brush off the idea of eating different foods. But this is actually one great way of sustaining our body, one great way of maintaining our health. Because, yes, we have food that is cooked, but sometimes you're just in between meals. You should use some of this time to eat some fruits, and they are good for the body. Because, mainly, if you don't eat your fruits, or if you don't eat your food as your medicine, if you don't eat it as medicine, then you're going to be eating a lot of medicine. So it means when you have this food, eat it, eat the foods that would take care of different aspects of your body, so that you are not going to have to go and be getting medication to look after different aspects of your body. So if you fail to eat some of your fruits, you may find yourself having to eat a lot of your medicine. That's why it's been said that, I think it's Hippocrates or somebody like that, that eat your food as your medicine, so that you will not eat your medicine as food. If you are able to do that, there will be abundance of health. Now, when I come across a lot of people that are in gardening, we have a lot of questions that go flying about. And sometimes I discover that some of these questions are not even just about gardening, they are basic life questions. For example, somebody was saying to me, how will I know where the sun is when I'm in my garden? And so I thought this is like a geography lesson. The sun is where it looks the sunniest when you're standing outside. That's just the basic thing. You wake up in the morning, look at the sun, observe where the sun is landing in your garden, and that is the place. Around there, that is where you put those plants that are sun loving, those plants that need a lot of sun. Then that's, I'm talking about an area that has a house. Now, if you go to the back of that house, it's in the evening that that back of the house will receive sunlight, because the house, let me take the seats out. It's not easy to get this seat, because the house is blocking the rays of the sun. It means a certain portion of the house will be in shade. It can be the front of the house. The front of the house can be in shade, and you know that you plant shade loving plants in the front of your house. And then the back of your house can be in the sun. Then you plant sun loving plants at the front of your house. You really need to pin this down and find out which area of your house you need to plant. If not, fruiting crops will not do too well. because they need at least 8 hours of sunshine. So people can say, oh, at least 6 hours. The 6 hours of sunshine will just give you some paltry sum of a harvest, not a good enough harvest. And then you would not really like it because you've put in all the effort, the same effort as you would have put in if you had planted it in a sunny place. This is because the sun will really be helping along. And if you don't do your own bit, the sun can only do its bit. I've put the things, the sun cannot reach it. The sun can only be on it for about 4 or 5 hours. That's about as much energy that it will be able to get from the sun because these plants obtain sunlight and they use it for photosynthesis. This is what you have to endure when you're eating a pomegranate. You're enjoying the taste of the seeds as you're eating it, but you have to keep remembering to take it out after you finish eating the seed around the seeds. It's quite tangy. It's not citrusy, but it's sharp and sweet. So it's sharper than an orange, yeah, but sweeter than a lemon. That's what the pomegranate is. It's sharp, it's sweet. It's sharper than an orange, but it's sweeter than a lemon. And I like the red coloring, and it contains the vitamin C, which is good for our diet. When you put a lot of the pomegranate seeds in your mouth, you get a rush of the juice mm, at the same time. Coming. Okay, growing for the following year. The year is coming to an end, and when we have the new year, you're going to see all the gardeners and everybody else coming out with their seedlings. And a lot of the times I would just be amazed. I would just think in my mind, when did you buy all this? And they will say, oh no, I grew from seed, I grew some seed, I grew some seed. So you have to remember that sentence. I grew from seed. So this is the time for you to make the plan on what seeds to get. You make a plan, you get the seeds, and you're going to have to get the pots and the soil. When you have them, you know that when the time is right, some seeds you can grow in January, some in February. You would have it in mind. That is because you've already made the plan right now. Make that plan. When the time comes, then you know, okay, we're planning to go to this particular shop to get this thing. Sometimes even if you saw it on the way from work, you just add it and say, okay, you tick that out of the list that's already been bought. So those are the things that we do in our garden that aids us to have this very bounteous yield. Because with gardening, it just takes planning. If you don't plan how you're going to garden, you're going to end up being stressed because you'll be running around looking for items. And then sometimes it may be running out in the shops because that is the shops do not know that so many people would want it. If you come at the last minute, they are stocking it gradually according to the amount of demand. So if you don't go along and let it be seen by the shops that okay, people are buying these things, they may not be refilling their shelves, restocking their shelves, and there will just be like a limited amount of stock available. So if you want to do some gardening, you have to plan ahead to probably get the containers you're going to use. It's not going to be like you need to buy new pots if you're already a gardener. If you have old pots, you need to get them out and clean them and get them prepared for the new season. This is the best way that you can help your garden to bring a very big yield. This is the best way for you to get your garden to bring the best yield for you because you will just realize there's a lot of things that you have to do by the time you need to start planting out that you may not even have the time to go out and be buying these things from the shops. If you're going to buy them from the shops, you'd already have it in your mind that you're going to buy it from the shops, not last minute, I'm going to buy from the shops because I didn't grow it. It pays and it's cheaper to buy. Nice. It's cheaper to buy your to buy your pogs, that is the seedlings from the to buy to plant your own seedlings. That means you have to understand how you're going to plant each one. You want to know how you want to space it, and you want to know which ones you can plant and transplant later. There are some plants that do not like to be uprooted or to be taken out of one cell and replaced into the soil. Such plants include carrots. Carrots want you to place me where I'm going to be. Okra as well. Okra wants you to place it where it's going to be. Okra doesn't want to be lifting it up and down all over the place. But then, in some situations, you may buy the okra seedling and carefully, but if you are not very careful with the roots system of the okra plant, it will give up. The okra plant is so sensitive while it is still young. This past year, I had to plant okra 4 times and they kept on dying. It's just that difficult to plant okra. So you have to plan ahead and know where you want your okra to be, and that's where you are going to put it. This is because sometimes we will be considering the weather and we can't put our plants outside in a certain place. Such plants, you'd have to wait for the weather to change. Thank you and welcome. You'd have to wait for the weather to change. You'd have to wait and make sure that the place you want to plant it is warm enough. Not that you will just say, oh, because I can't plant this indoors, I'm going to plant it outside and it's not even warm enough. That's not going to work out at all. It's not going to work out for you and you have lost your seed. So it's better to just keep an eye out and make sure the weather is all right for you to plant these things outside. That's the best way to go with it. Are you hearing me? Okay. That's the best way to go with the planting malaki. Now, I said before that we have to consider safety when we are doing our gardening. We have to consider when we're trying to um, plant, where we're positioning things, make sure they're not in the way so that you don't end up maybe you put something that's a vining plant and you stumble over it. Those are the main things that could cause a bit of a problem. Also, if you're using tools, always have it at the back of your mind. Know where you place your tools when you're placing them down. Don't just put your tools around carelessly and then start stepping on it and causing injuries. Those are all the things that would actually need to consider when we want to do our gardening, because you just find out that a lot of people would say, oh, I want to start gardening, and the next thing they'll come along is they've stepped on a garden rake. Well, it's not a garden rake you use when you're doing gardening, but it's usually a garden rake that people will step on, and that's very, very dangerous. Maybe they were trying to take the garden rake out of the way. I don't know, but that's one thing I've noticed. A lot of people will come along and say they stepped on this and they stepped on that, and I will say, okay, when you want to go into your garden, please try as much as possible, wear your proper shoes so that you're not running into the situation where you'll be stepping on a rake or you'll be stepping on anything that would injure you. Those are all the things that we will have to keep in mind when we are trying to run a garden, when we are trying to have a garden that will be lucrative and pretty for us. So we want to consider all these things and put them in mind when we're doing it, because a garden is something that's like, it's a system, it's a part of everything else that you're doing, but it doesn't take all your time, it doesn't take all your energy, it doesn't take as much of your time as a lot of other activities that I know. Because if you have a garden, you know the time you want to spend in there and what you're going to do. If you've already found out what needs to be done, then you will be able to just apportion that amount of time, and that's the amount of time that you will spend in your garden. You would not spend so much time that you are now, oh, I've wasted too much time in that garden. Every minute you spend in the garden, you would enjoy. And the things that you would see there, they would be things that will make you happy, and you know that, yeah, you're forthcoming with all the things that you see in the garden. The other thing that one would have to consider with this thing is storing after harvesting, because a lot of people would harvest and their products just go to ruin. You don't want to spend your energy harvesting, growing and harvesting, and then because you think in your mind, oh, I grew it, then you allow it to go to waste. Even if you purchase something from the shops, you'd want to learn how to store everything. That is something that we all need to learn, especially if the thing you've made needs to be canned, then you can check on YouTube. You'd find a channel about canning your food. If you want to freeze it, find a channel about freezing it. If you want to dry it, find a channel about drying it. And drying some of my herbs, I dry my mint, I dry my thyme, I just dry them because I know how to. Because I still have a lot on the plants anyway, even after drying them. The reason why I harvest them is because I don't want them to mature and start flowering. So when I've harvested them and I have a lot, I just dry it just to have it and say, oh, I've dried my mint and I've not allowed it to go to flower, because I don't want the meat to go to flower and become very tough. I want it to remain young, and I will harvest it so that it has all the oils. And when you're harvesting your mint, and other herbs as well, because they have this very nice scent. When you're harvesting them, try and do it in the morning, because overnight the oils come to the surface and they are in the dark all night long. In the morning, there's a lot of oil on the surface of the leaves, and all day long, this oil begins to evaporate. So, if you come along to harvest your mint in the evening, it means the oil has just evaporated. You'd want it to actually take up some oil, bring it to the leaves when you want to harvest the leaves, because you are not going to really be eating the stem, are you? You are going to be eating just the leaves. So that's why you want the oil to be passed from the stem to the leaves. This happens overnight. And then by the morning, when you harvest your herbs, they will have the scent, they will have the oil, and you would be able to have the advantage that you are expecting from your herbs. Not, oh, whatever is there is what I'm going to have. You will have the advantage of what the herb is supposed to give to you. Because when you leave your herbs and you don't harvest it at the right time, it's going to either grow too mature, it's going to either grow too mature and starts to, it's called bolting. So it's going to grow too mature, it will bolt. But if you harvest it at the right time, before it bolts, before it starts to flower, then it will be the greatest um, herb that you've made, much greater than the one you buy in the shop, because it's fresh. It's not been spread out over some very large surfaces and then treated, however, and brought over to you. It's just been harvested and brought to you. That is, you just harvest it from your own garden and you're using it in your own home. It's not the kind of herb that has traveled a great distances to reach you. Not those ones that will say, oh, this has gone kilometers or something like that. It's just come directly to you. So you can enjoy the advantage of having your own fresh herbs. And to grow a herb garden is actually very simple. You can grow a herb garden even with small pots. It doesn't have to be large pots. You have this set of small pots in a tray, and then you can choose six herbs that you like. By choosing six herbs that you like, you've given yourself the room to have so many, because a lot of the times when we are cooking, we don't use more than two at a time or three. So, giving yourself six herbs on a circular tray, you use this circular base to take the water. You just put the six small pots inside, and you place it on your window sill. You will enjoy herbs like thyme, mint, chives, coriander, curly leaf parsley. Those are the sets that I have. Um, Rosemary. So having this time just at arm's reach, and don't, if you are placing it outside, don't place it too far away, because then if you're cooking in the cold weather, you would be like, oh, I don't want to go across. Or you probably go across and you will be trailing a bit of mud, a bit of something, or you place your herb garden close to your kitchen or in your kitchen. If your herb garden is in your kitchen, it may not get a lot of sunshine. But if it's outside, just next to your kitchen door, open the door and you will reach it. Or next to your front door, you open the door and reach it. If you place your herb garden very far away from the house and you have to walk across, it's not going to be convenient for you to use. And a lot of the times you would not just overlook it and say, oh, I will use the shop bought one anyway. And your own herb that you are growing is actually there. Because I've seen that happens to a lot of us. Even after we've grown our own thyme, our own mint and coriander, you are still shopping, you still pick one or two and something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. You can buy some herbs, but you also want to add the ones that you've grown at home, because this gives you the advantage of the homegrown factor being in your diet. And this is very, very important. With herbs, you don't need more than to use some compost in your soil. You don't need any heavy handed going to take these fertilizers, and herbs like to grow in tough conditions. Herbs don't like to be mollycoddled. They don't like to be like, oh, we are the ones here enjoying ourselves, like tomatoes like. Herb like you to put them through the throes of life. Then they will come out, and they will come out with all the oils from the earth. They will come out smelling nicely. That is a herb that has been growing, not being overwatered, over pampered, or anything. That is herb that is allowed to grow by itself, not just grow from one height to 2 feet in a week. It has to take its time to grow, and then it will bring along the oil. That is when you say you have the herbs for your cooking, because it will have all the necessary oils in it. That is when you say you have herbs in your cooking. Please drop your questions. So I'm just finishing my pomegranate right now. I was eating the pomegranate as one fruit that we have as you can eat a new fruit for these new times. So I've decided to eat the pomegranate and the passion fruit. So here's the one I'm eating, and I'm reviewing it and telling how it tastes. It tastes sweet, it's sharp like an orange, but it's sweeter than a lemon. That's my description for it. And I like the red color of it. I like the pomegranate juice in the shops. It's always nice. And I have a pomegranate tree outside. I didn't pluck this from the tree anyway. This shop bought, but I have a pomegranate tree. So I'm just looking forward to when it will start fruiting. So I was talking about growing our herbs. When we grow herbs at home, hello and thank you, welcome. So when you plant your herbs, you need to locate them quite close to your house, because even as you're going in and coming, this one thing that I enjoy, my rosemary, every time I'm going in and coming out, I'll just touch it. I'll just ruffle my hand in it, and it feels very good because it just release its scent, because it has oil all over the surface. So even simply touching it like this, some of the oil will just blow into the atmosphere. That's the reason why I said harvesting our herbs should be done in the morning, because the oils are secreted overnight. So they are highest in concentration in the morning. If they're secreted overnight and you come along in the morning and harvest it, then you would have a lot of oil on your leaves. If you wait till the afternoon, these oils are already evaporating. As these oils are evaporating, they are depleting, and you harvest it, you're not going to get as much oils on your herbs as you are expecting. And it will just now be like maybe the same one as the one you bought in the shops, that they will just harvest it. Um, the packaging will be done. It may have all the oils intact, or or a lot of the oils might have evaporated because of the processing that it has to undergo before it gets to you. So you find out that it's not always that you get the best um, from the herbs. You just make do with what you have. They harvest it in such large amounts. Whereas if you're growing in such little bunches in your own house, you can actually see the oil. You can actually see the oil on the leaf when you're harvesting it. You can see that, yeah, this means, I can see the oil. When you look at your mint in the morning around 7, 8, 9 a.m., and see what I'm saying, it's shiny and green and fresh. You can tell that this leaf is covered in oil. That's the region of the time that it should be harvested, not later in the evening when the oil has evaporated. And also, don't wait for your herbs to bolt. For example, you need to harvest chives around March, end of March. If you don't harvest chives by end of March, it will start flowering. It will start flowering April, May. You enjoy the flowers, they are like purple, but if you're harvesting at that time, these things are already very tough. So what you would need to do is wait for the flowering to be over, and then you can start doing your harvesting. The plants would just have to be there like that. The only other way you can do is to take out the flowers and keep an eye on the leaves of the plant for a few days and decide if you want to harvest it or if you want to leave it there just like that. So those are the things that we will do when we want to manage our herb garden, because the herb garden is actually like a pharmacy. The herb garden helps keep our health because they produce a lot of things that have vitamins, minerals in them. We have such herbs that are even called weeds because of their resilience, their staying power. When you think about a weed called dandelion, it's a herb, it's a weed. It depends on who is talking about it. I would often say, for me, it's an upgraded herb because I know everybody will say, oh, it's a weed, but it is a herb because the amount of vitamin C in the flower of dandelion is about as much as we have in an orange. So it's not just a weed, it's a source of health producing vitamin. You can harvest this and use it. And also, the roots of the dandelion, they go in very deep into the earth and they contain a lot of minerals that are good for the body. So people can go along and oh, thank you very much, Danny. You're welcome. I appreciate your coming. People can go along and uproot these, uproot these, and it's it's um it's good when they use it to make um potions because of the fact that it goes far into the earth. It's able to absorb a lot of nutrients from from the from the bowels of the earth, and we know that all those good things are probably hidden in the bowels of the earth. Most herbs that we have will come back. That is, they're not just going to be there for 1 year. Once you plant it 1 year, it's going to come again the following year. If you plant the lemongrass, if you plant the lemon balm, if you plant lavender or rosemary, they are all coming back the following year. The leaves may reduce or go dry over the winter, but they'll come back when it's springtime. And that's the beauty of herbs. So it's very advantageous to grow herbs. And when we eat herbs, we should not be thinking in terms of maybe 1 pinch or 2 pinches. Eat a lot of herbs because that's what the human body needs. The body needs a lot of herbs. The body needs a lot of herbs for the systems to work very well. Not just 1 pinch or 2 pinches. That's because when people are growing herbs, they grow so little because they don't want the smell of it to overpower the food. But it's not about the smell or the scent. It's about the food nutrient that these things contain. If you're eating herbs and you're just eating it with just the tip of the spoon volume, that's not going to be how much will each person get in their own plate. These herbs need to be eaten in a higher volume than we are doing. That is how we're going to gain the advantage. So you can't say, oh yes, I've eaten this herb, it contains this. What percentage, what amount of the herb did you eat? Did you eat enough to give you the advantage that it's supposed to contain? You have to eat more of it. Eat more of those herbs rather than eating more of other things that you consider starch or something. Eat more of herbs and it pays our body. I was just told today, and I went over and researched it. And when you see the loofah and you plant it, you've got a deal breaker because planting the loofah or when you see it and you buy it, it helps with snoring. And I'm sure this thing is popular and common among a very large percentage of the population. We all want one way or the other, or one thing or the other that we can take that will reduce our snoring, that will just take care of our sinuses. Yeah, something that will take care of the sinuses. That is the loofah while it's still young before it becomes tough and very stringy. You take it, you cut it, and then put it in water and boil it. That is very good for clearing the sinuses. It helps get the place swelling to go down because it's just like the cucumber. Because you see, this gourd looks exactly like a cucumber. It grows the same way. So they are both anti-inflammatory properties. They both have anti-inflammatory properties. So when I was reading up on the gourd and I learned it had anti-inflammatory properties, I was like, oh yes, they are of the same family. So they have that same characteristic, and that is they are able to help reduce swellings in the internal mucosa, the internal parts of our organs. Even if you have a swelling on your ankle or a swelling on your feet, on your toes, or between your fingers, I'm just referring to all those um, things that are called arthritis. All those swellings can be dealt with by taking plants and herbs that have anti inflammatory properties. If you take a lot more of cucumbers. And now, if you take the young gourd, the gourd is like a sponge. When it's mature, it's cut up and dried, and it's used as a sponge, which used to cover the skin when bathing. But while it is still young, it is edible, and it is very, very medicinal. It is a very good anti-inflammatory. It helps the body's systems. So you want to get in clue with sourcing some gourd, because we all know about the things that affect people most are related to inflammation of the body cells. So when you see a fruit or a plant or a herb that what it deals with is inflammation, you need to put that herb into your notebook and keep an eye out. Either you're going to grow it or you're going to buy it when you get to the shops. Because one other herb, there are so many herbs that deal with inflammation in the system, but these two are so important that we need a lot of the time to remember to take them. A lot of us don't remember to take cucumbers. We will come along and we'll be having a sandwich with just one slice of cucumber in it. I think we need to increase the amount of cucumber that we eat, because that amount is too small. Maybe just one slice of cucumber in a meal, and you're not having it every day. That is too small. We should increase the amount of foods that are medicines to our body. And that's what I said earlier, that it is popularly said that eat your food as your medicine, then you will not eat your medicine as food. That you will not have a plate full of medicine to be eaten if you're already eating all the plateful of those foods that they say are medicinal. That's just what it means. And if we go on with this, that's just the best way to enable our our body to be in relating to the plants that we have, the fruits that we have, because they need to be companions to us. They need to be eaten, they need to be in our bodies before they can be of great use. I observe a lot of people that would say they would buy fruits and keep it in the fruit bowl. That is very, very popular. They would buy fruits, it will be in the fruit bowl, but they won't be eating it. And they will be throwing it away one by one. Whichever one, they will test it to see which one is spoiled. And whichever one is spoiled, they throw away. And that's it. That's what they do with the food. And you go shopping maybe the next fortnight and buy your fruit, lots of fruit, because everybody's been told to eat fruits nowadays. You get home, put them in your fruit bowl. Nobody eats it. You will check it one by one, and whichever one is spoiled, start throwing it away until you empty the bowl away again. That's not what fruit is meant for. Fruit is meant to be your companion. It's meant to be eaten, not just put it in a fruit bowl and use it to decorate your living room table or your dining room table. Your fruit is not meant for your bowl. Your fruit is meant for your mouth. It's supposed to be eaten. It's not how many fruits you have there that it has to be full. No, deplete it as soon as you buy and you get home. Start eating them. Don't wait until the fruits have become spoiled and then you start throwing them away. What you have to do is you concentrate on, oh, this is the percentage, this is the starting point. Oh, by within 3 days we should have eaten more than half of this fruit, because you don't want to even wait a whole length of time. You want your fruits to be finished before you go for your next shopping. That is how much you, I think that happens sometimes with our food, other foods that are not food. We eat them up. Make sure you eat your fruits, let them be consumed before you go for your next shopping. That's what the fruits are meant for. It's not decorations, something colorful to have on the dining table. Because you can see families shopping, buying fruits, always having a lot of fruits on in their fruit bowl and everything. But no, they are not they're not eating it. They're not eating. Hello. Hello Toviko. You're welcome. Thank you. Welcome. How was your meeting? I hope your meeting was all right. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Hello? Hello? Hello, darling. How are you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hmm. I'm live. It's all right. I'm just telling my friends about eating our fruits and everything. Because it's not just for decorating our tables. Because we do that a lot, don't we? Yeah, we do. Yeah. We need to eat the fruits. Just buy them and put them in the dining table. That's not what it's supposed to be. Okay, then. Have a lovely night. Okay, see you. Bye. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, you love pomegranates. They are very nice, but a lot of the times when we buy them, we just we just buy them and leave them in the fruit bowl, and when we come back, oh, this fruit is not good anymore. This fruit is past its sell by date, and you go and you throw it away. No, it should not be so. When you buy fruits, the purpose of the fruit is that we eat it. So the purpose is that we eat them so that we can gain the advantage that is in the fruits. Now, sometimes we buy some fruits and they don't taste so sweet. And I used to wonder, if I have an orange and it's not very sweet, does it mean the vitamin C will be less? No, it still contains the vitamins that it's supposed to contain. So when you're eating a pomegranate and it's not very sugary, or you have a pomegranate that is very sugary, yes, it may have a sugary taste, but it still has vitamin C. Or it may not have a sugary taste, it still has, so it still got its advantage. The only thing is that you don't enjoy the journey of eating it. So if you have a fruit and you eat it and you're not really enjoying it, that means you're just trying to eat it for the sake of what it contains. But if you're eating a fruit and it's very tasty and you're enjoying it, it means that as well as gaining vitamins and other minerals from it, you're also enjoying taking it into your body. It's like when we're having a pineapple. You know, the pineapple is very sweet. I don't like eating apple whole, so I cut it into small pieces and eat with my cereal. Yeah, that's a very great idea. My sister as well does not like eating apple whole, so she would cut it and she would cut it with some other fruits like a pear and grapes. I remember that, and strawberries. So it's going to now become, it's not even an apple anymore. And that's what she would now have in a bowl. And she would just be eating all of it. She would have it with a cereal as well. My son doesn't like to eat banana on his own. So he loves it with cereal. So I found a way to make him eat it. Yes, that's it. Yes, you have to find a way to put these fruits in a brilliant twist for our children. We have to put it in as a brilliant twist so that they're not thinking in their mind that, oh, we are eating this food that is boring. Because the moment you mention food, children are thinking ice cream, ice cream. But if you have your fruit in a way that is nice, when my children were young, I used to slice as a vertical slice. I used to slice the carrots. I would make them into strips, carrot strips, and the cucumbers as well. And I will now have it on either side of the bowl. So they can see the green and they can see the orange. So as they are eating the carrots, they are eating the cucumber. Sometimes they will feel like, the carrot is sweeter, and they eat more carrots. But when they see that the cucumbers are just so, it's not like, oh, this is a very big cucumber. How am I going to overcome it? It's just in strips. They will take some cucumber as well, and then they start to love the cucumbers. Please leave me a like. Press the like button. Thank you. Come in and press the like button, please. Thank you. Don't you like discussing these fruits? So we have to present the fruits to our children. Thank you very much. Welcome. Please leave me a like. We have to present the food to our children in a way that is very attractive, in a way that is almost playful, because even if an orange is not sweet, it still has vitamin C. Even if a carrot is not so crunchy, even if a pineapple or an apple is not so green or so red, it still contains all its vitamins. But children don't want to eat it. They don't want to eat something that is not brilliant, something that doesn't look like ice cream. So we have to make sure that we present the fruits to them in a way that it's interesting, it catches their interest, and that is the best way to eat these fruits. So you go along and you see it. Even I said it when I was eating this passion fruits yesterday, that I'm eating it because of the name, because it's just like a pomegranate, but it's juicier. It's juicier than a pomegranate. That is it. And I just have this memory of a drink that uses the passion fruit. They have the passion fruit in that drink. And the moment I started eating passion fruits, I was able to tell straight away that yes, I remember that drink is flavored with passion fruit, and the passion fruit is actually quite nice. So we have to devise a way to enable our children to like the fruits. They need to look at the color, the texture, the taste, and what it's going to do to them. You can tell them once in a while, oh, this is good for you, it's good for your eyes, this is good for your belly, this is good for your bones. You just tell them a bit about these fruits. That's going to just light some fire onto their own imagination. And then they start to say, oh, if this carrot is good for my eyes, how am I going to use it to wash my eyes? You understand? So having that knowledge that carrot is good for your eyes, you begin to think. And then if you find an opportunity, you probably be able to go along and research it. Or you can ask other people, what are the things that are in the carrot? And they say, oh, vitamin A is good for your eyes, and the carrot contains vitamin A. And then you'll be able to see that this is very good. Please leave a like on my chat. Thank you. So these things are all just in aid of keeping our bodies and soul healthy and brilliant. So we need to put the brilliant twist in, because apart from being in the garden and receiving the sunlight and getting vitamin D, the foods that we eat also would help boost our vitamins, and this is going a great way. I'm trying to meet my own quota of foods because I need to eat my fruits. So I'm trying to meet my quota of fruits that I'm supposed to eat, and this is very nice. mm, because the fruits, as we've been told, is very good for our body, and it's not just fruit; it's fruits and herbs and vegetables. And at this time of the day, over here, it's now after 9. The fruits are the main thing that I can be eating out because it's already late in the evening and I've had my dinner. So that's one other advantage of having these fruits around. That is the main thing you can eat at this time of day that will do your body any favors. You don't want to come along with a gigantic bowl of spaghetti, or one some large slices of pizza, some big pot of amala or pounded yam. Do you? The very best things you can eat by this time of the day are fruits, and then you can have some tea if you choose. Those are the best things that you can have when it's already past 7 p.m. That's why these foods, apart from what nutrients they give to us, they also are there for us to like lightly eat. They are meals that are light when we eat them. They don't weigh down our body. They help our digestive systems, and that's just the best that one can ask for. The food that you're eating that doesn't pull you down in any way, but it actually builds you up. Those are the best type of foods available that I know. So that is what we have to consider. We have to know that these fruits are just good for our systems and they are the best that we can give to our bodies. One thing that we just have to consider when we're eating our fruits is how we wash them, how we'll prepare them so that we don't have the germs that are coming in along with the fruits and we are eating it all together. Because you have to eat your fruits in such a way that you don't now take in pathogens, maybe from the skin. You eat those fruits mainly that you can peel, and if you can't peel it, you would have to wash it thoroughly before you eat it. Those are considerations that we need to bear in mind because these times are very difficult and everybody is in a sort of a quandary about what do we do, what happens next. That way is actually something that means we all need to find answers. We all need to find answers. Tobiko Charles, can you all leave me my like on on this chat? So guess the three people are Mhm. Yeah. Okay, here's my list. Oh, asking for my list of questions. Okay. We'll probably be bringing this to an end if nobody else is coming along that wants to say something. Thank you for the like. Mm, the things you do when you want to start a garden, you'd have to consider starting small, starting with those things that you can do, you can plant, and you know about planting. There's nobody that is actually born with a green thumb. Everybody has to learn to plant one thing, and when you plant one thing successfully, it gives you the courage, it gives you the impetus to step further, to decide that you want to grow something else. Everybody coming along and thinking you don't have a green thumb, you can't grow good things, is just not true. You learn a bit about what you want to grow. When you grow it and you grow it successfully, then you go further and grow more. So nobody is you color your thumb green. Nobody's thumb was green when they came to this world, because nobody knew anything when they came to this world. Everything that you do, you learned it. You have to learn everything that you do. If you can dance well, you have to learn it. Yes, you may have a supple body that is able to move more than another person, but you have to learn the steps to take to be able to dance well. Even people that sing well, they had to learn how to flex their voice. You see, the people that cannot sing well, they do not know which part of their voice they need to flex to be able to sing well. That's why they are not good singers. So when you come across somebody who says one person is not a good gardener, that is not the case. One person who's not a good gardener is because that person has not learned how to grow that specific thing that is been charged to grow. When you give somebody an item or a plant to grow, and that person has been sitting down for 1 hour and told, put it in the soil, do it this way and the other, and they learn it, when they grow it, it will be successful. There is nobody who cannot grow anything. You can bring somebody who doesn't, who can't even do a single thing, but just lift your hand and put something in the soil, the person will be able to grow a garden. That's because you don't need to be what they call a green thumb. The first important thing you must know about gardening is that your plants need to be fed. And feeding your plants is not about fertilizers. Feeding your plants is about the soil. Because although we'll use fertilizers, but your plant has to get up and running with the help of something else in the soil. That is the living organisms that are in the soil. So if you think, oh, that person has a green thumb, I don't have a green thumb, I'm not going to be able to grow, it doesn't happen. Those are people just trying to pull you back. It's just like when a rich person will come along and say money doesn't grow on trees. Of course, money doesn't grow on trees. So where does money grow? Money doesn't grow anywhere. So why would you say money doesn't grow on trees? Money is a thing that you produce. It doesn't grow anywhere. So when I've come across people who are making all sorts of claim, even if money was growing on trees, you would have to climb up the trees to get them, because if they drop to the floor, there'll be a lot of people scrambling to get the money. That is my own belief. So when somebody comes and says money doesn't grow on tree, it's just like, oh, if the money grew on tree, it would be way up there, and if it drops to the ground, then there will be a lot of us scrambling to get it, which is just the way it is in life. The money that we have in this world, we're all scrambling to get it. We're all scrambling to get a share of that money. So whether that money grew on tree, whether that money grew inside somewhere, is not a factor. It's the location of the money that everybody is trying to reach. Everyone is trying to have a share of the money just so that you can provide food, heat, comfort for yourself and your family. So when somebody comes along and they are giving you the sayings of somebody's got a thumb, a brown green thumb, the money doesn't grow on trees, all those sayings, you need to take it apart and try to look at it very well. And you would find out that there is a meaning behind it. They are just trying to prevent people from doing something. Somebody comes along and you say he doesn't have, this one has a green thumb. The person that is standing there is already thinking in his mind, "Hmm, they have said that person has a green thumb. I doubt it if I have a green thumb." And the person is not encouraged. So when somebody says somebody else has a green thumb in your presence, you say in your mind that I hope I can develop mine as well. And you surely will. But if you allow yourself to be cowered down by the fact that somebody has been said to have a green thumb, and you're now going to not try to learn what needs to be done, you need to do some research. What you don't necessarily have to watch on my own YouTube video, but you need to do some research and learn what needs to be done to get your plant growing. Because that is the important thing. Your plant needs specific things to grow. Your plant needs support. It needs to be anchored to the soil. It needs to be anchored in the water, maybe with laca or with some stones. It needs support so that it can start growing. It needs sunlight so that it can stay alive. Because if there's no sunlight, a plant is going to die. Then it needs water and nutrients so that it can grow properly. Those are the things that your plant needs. You have to consider it as having that plant, it's a living organism, and you need to keep it alive. The way you can keep it alive is by not starving it. Excuse me. The way to keep it alive is by not starving it. Because if you're starving this plant, it will not stay alive. It will go away. It will be ill. It will be malnourished. It will be lacking in certain um, food groups, and you will find out that that plant is suffering. At the end of the day, a lot of things will occur. You can find a plant because the soil is not good. This plant would have blossom end rot. This would happen in tomatoes. It would also happen in peppers. That is, if you don't have a good watering regime for your plants and you allow it to get too dry, then you suddenly rush along and you start to water it and you don't have calcium in the soil, that plant will just stay on one side and not be feeling too well, then it will come and develop a black side. I've got a plant here and a fruit here, and though it's not blossom end rot, but it is a condition of being exposed. Those are all the things that we'll have to learn as gardeners. You will see that this tomato has been exposed on one side to the cold. A plant needs a certain temperature. If it is left outside, this tomato was just there outside until it got cold. If it's left outside and it gets cold, the part that the cold got to, the cells there will die. And when the tomato itself is ripening, those cells cannot ripen because they are not living anymore. They will just remain brown. Those are all the things that we need to learn when we go into gardening. They are all the things that we need to put at the back of our mind. It's not going to be every day that you're going to be having the same conditions, but you would have learned a little bit. You learn one today, you learn another one tomorrow. So you would have a whole list of things that you have at the back of your mind's diary so that you can self correct in your garden. If there's a problem in your garden, you can bust it straight away. You can deal with the problem. That is how you are going to make yourself into a good producer, and your garden will be everything you grow, you concentrate on it, and it will yield highly. It will come across because you are going to be able to um, capture all the essence that is necessary and available to you because you know what the plant needs, you know what the plant cannot stand, you know which plants cannot stay near each other. There was somebody who was planting tomatoes, and they said in one research that some people were planting tomatoes along with potatoes, and they're trying to plant tomatoes and plant tomatoes below it. Now, these potatoes had um, potato disease, which is early blight. It's very, very common in potatoes if it's getting a lot of water on its leaves. While you're trying to wet the tomatoes, you're also wetting the potatoes. So if your potatoes should catch early blight, it means your tomatoes too will catch it because these two plants belong in the same nightshade family. You don't want a situation where one plant group has a problem, the other one has it. So when I grow my tomatoes, I make sure I don't grow them in the same area at all. They are growing like far apart. I don't grow them around each other because I don't want the disease of the potato to affect the tomatoes. Because when you're bringing your plants and you're growing them, you don't know which one of them is more susceptible, but they both can be susceptible to that specific disease. It means your entire farm is just a waiting duck to be pushed into the ocean. If both of them are susceptible to the same type of disease, they can't even cover each other. Potatoes often will bring early blight, and this will catch on to the tomatoes, and it becomes very serious. And it may not even affect the potato as much as it would the tomatoes, because the potatoes are underground. They may not be so affected, but the ones that are on the surface, the fruits, they will just start to blister and turn brown. And once a portion of the fruit has changed, the cells are dead, there's not going to be any ripening. So where are you going to get your harvest? Because you can't harvest a tomato and start saying, oh, half of it is good and half of it is not good. If a tomato is damaged by one single spot, the tomato is damaged. That's what you would say. You can't look at that tomato and say, oh yeah, this tomato is still perfect, because that tomato has been damaged by early blight. Those are the things we need to consider when we're trying to do our planting. We consider those plants that can go with each other, and those plants that will not be able to grow together because they just affect each other's health. That is the only way I can put it. We need to enhance our plants' disease resistance by where we place them. Some people will place a plant that's got a lot of leaves very close to the wall inside their glass house, because the glass house, the space is the volume inside the glass house. So you can't have the glass house, you can't have the span of your tomatoes outside the glass house. It's going to be inside the glass house. So you find that the tomatoes can now start developing some kind of leaf mold, some mildew. The best thing would be to break off those tomato leaves and let that tomato keep on growing, because it means that region inside the glass house is too damp. If it's too damp, the tomatoes cannot grow well, because if the leaves of the tomato are not well, then the tomatoes will not grow very well. The flowering will not work well, and the pollination will not work well, because even bees don't like it where it is damp and it's smelling a bit damp. Because when it becomes damp and there's mildew, there will be a kind of underground smell. And you know, the bees, they can smell the flowers. That's why they're coming along for the nectar. When the bees are now able to smell damp or your leaves, they won't be attracted to the flowers on those leaves. So you are discouraging the bees from coming along by packing your garden or your glass house too full. You have to make sure that your tomato plants are growing freely, and if you are even growing them in a glass house, they need to be far away from touching the walls of the glass house. If you are allowing them to touch the walls of the glass house, the tomatoes will not do well. The tomatoes, please leave me a like. Thank you. Welcome. The tomatoes will not do well. The tomatoes will not fruit well, and then this is going to affect the size of our yield. All these are the points that come together and help enhance a beautiful yield. Have it just at the back of the mind. It's not like, oh, it's something that you're going to be saying to yourself every day, but you know it, that your plant needs to have good, healthy leaves. If your plant doesn't have good, healthy leaves, photosynthesis will be affected. It will be it will be taken back. It will be reduced, because you are now in a situation where it's as if somebody is under a cover. If the leaves are under mildew, thank you. If the leaves are under mildew, the leaves are drying up, the leaves are not healthy, you need to break them off. Then you'd have a tomato plant instead of just having a whole entire. You see dry leaves even in mid-season. Please break off those sort of leaves from your tomato plants, because they are really not helping the plants out. The plants should be growing freely and happily so that it can produce a very good yield. That is what we want in our gardens. And we also want these plants to be looking beautiful. We want these plants to be looking less attractive for the bees to come along. Although you can self pollinate your plants by yourself, it's also good to have the bees for what is called um, diversity between the plants, because the bees that are going to pollinate your tomatoes may be coming from another garden with an entirely different set of of things on their body, so that when they pollinate your tomatoes along with the pollen grain from that plant, if anyone that is suitable for that tomato now helps to start the fertilization of the flower, you will get healthier plants. That is why they sell some seeds in the shop and call it disease resistant. They are the type that produce fruits that don't just get spoiled. They don't just break down and oh, everything is not good anymore. They are the type that when you plant it, if it's hot weather, they will go through successfully. If it's cold weather, they will go through successfully. They are able to withstand a certain range of excessiveness. There are some plants, if you put them and it's too hot, they will just die and you won't have your plants anymore. But when you have a situation where you have some your plants, but they are still able to withstand it when it's hot, and then sometimes it gets windy, they are still able to stand upright. Those are the type of plants that you call disease resistant, because in all those times of hotness and all those times of windiness, a lot of pathogens and diseases are being passed around, they are being blown around inside the garden, but your plant is resisting it. Your plant is not allowing it to stand on its body. Those are the type of things that we say about having plants that are healthy. And this can be enhanced by looking after the leaves, making sure they are not wet. Because when you have damp, wet leaves, it encourages leaf mold, it encourages so many other invertebrates to come and start breeding. They like a comfortable, convenient breeding space that they will not dry out, they will not be burnt out. So if they can find this between two leaves in your garden, that's one thing I do during the early spring. I'll go around and if I see any two leaves that seem to be like and the two and the leaves are going to be growing and probably one insect can come along and pull them together and lay eggs, I will entirely cut off one of them so there is nothing that's going to cross each other. And that's what they teach us if you are growing roses. If you see one that is like facing inward, it's not just because of the beauty of the plant, it's because of ensuring the health of the plant. Because if it's growing inward, the leaves are going to be touching. Hello, hello, darling. Thank you for coming. I'm here. Mhm. Thank you for coming. I'm here. So I'm just talking about the leaf mold that can occur if plants, and I'm using as example the um, rose plants pruning. Thank you. I appreciate. Please leave my like. I thank you. I can see it already. Thank you so so much. Thank you. I really really appreciate you. Thank you very much. And greetings to Bradley. Bye. Thank you. Okay. So when you have somebody giving you advice on how to prune your roses, and they say if you see anyone, yeah, thank you. I can see. Thank you. If you see any stem crossing inwards, you should cut it off. This is apart from the beauty of the rose plant. If a stem is crossing inwards, it means most of the leaves will now start touching each other. That's going to provide a breathing space for so many things. You see some butterflies will come in and hide there and lay their eggs. A lot of aphids, the ants will bring them. They'll be looking for where to start the ants colony. They find a place where two leaves are touching. They will just stay there. There was a time I saw this spider had its house in my garden. Yes, the spiders always have their house and they are welcome. But that is where it will stay in a place where you can put two leaves together, and the two leaves will now make a kind of an like a tent touching, and you will kind of sew them together with some kind of glue, and be staying underneath and be poking his eyes out. That is what pests and other invertebrates that are very microscopic or macroscopic but not very big do. They are looking for your weak points, the weak points of your plant, so that they can just cash in on that and be able to 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 overcome your plant's resistance to diseases. So if you're creating a situation where, oh, this is my disease resistant seed, but you don't keep it from touching each other, don't keep it from being dry, or you don't keep it from all sorts of these things that are not conducive, you allowing it to be blown up and down. The stem is getting too stressed because you didn't tie it to a stick. Those are the things that will affect a gardener's yield, and it will seem as if, oh, this gardener doesn't have a green thumb, because the way the garden is looking is not very nice. The garden is looking like this person doesn't know how to grow anything. Half of the garden is burnt. You have to plan it at the beginning of your gardening, the amount of garden you have, the amount of yeah, yeah. You have to. Oh, perfect. Crimson red. Yeah, my rose is crimson red as well. I'll send a picture of it next, very soon. Oh, I love. I don't really remember the name, to say the truth, but it's crimson red, and it actually comes up with a heart shaped rose at times, which is very nice. I think it's not just one rose, there's more than one of them. But then when it comes out, they are so packed tight that it looks heart shaped. I just enjoy looking at these roses in my garden, making different kinds of formations. Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, and prune the roses carefully, and beginning of spring, and then we prune it end of beginning of is this the beginning of winter? Yeah, prune I prune my roses at the beginning of winter, and I also prune it at the beginning of spring, because it will have grown a bit again. And I like to start with my roses being very short, because when I started with my roses being a bit tall, they were hmm okay. What does your premiere mean? Does it mean you mean your video, or what? What does that mean? You mean on your channel? I'm just going to check, and then so you find that yes, you need to prune your plants properly for the health of the plant. It's not just for not just for pruning its sake alone, but so that you have a healthy, beautiful yield on your plants. Because even your roses, your flowers are a yield if they come along very well. If your flowers come along and they're like very small, not very pretty, then that's not a good yield on that plant. Because if you plant a rose, the yield is the flower. So if the flower comes along not looking good, then you haven't got a good yield. So you don't think that, oh, it's a plant, it's a flowering plant, it's a cosmos, it's a dahlia. The flower on the dahlia is the yield of the dahlia, because especially if you are seeing people that are called flower farmers, they will tell you that the flower is actually the yield. So it's the flower that they are looking to collect, to sell. And well, at the end of the day, they can uproot it, make it into two, sell one, and keep the other. But the flower is what identifies the yield as being good. If it's a nice shaped flower, it's pointing in the right direction, it's not just looking down, so that it can be used in formation of bouquet, you will know that you've got yourself a nice yield on your flower plant. If you grow roses, and it's I had one rose that I grew, got it from a friend. I planted this rose and it started growing, and it came in with very nice petals that were actually heart shaped. Not the entire rose, the petals now, they were heart shaped on this pink rose. And later I saw another stem of rose coming out, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And it produced a rose, but the petals were so, they were not tight, they were just loosely held together. Then I realized that this was actually the rootstock overtaking the entire thing. That I had to cut off the entire rootstock of that plant, the entire one that had produced that new rose, what I meant. I cut it off, I'd allowed it to dry, then I made sure that the soil was not covering that point again. Because if the soil is covering too much of your rootstock, then it will start generating new stems underneath. You should only have stems above the joints of the rootstock, because a lot of roses are grafted onto each other. So you see that rootstock will also be a rose, but it's not a rose as good as the one you are growing. So they have taken one rose that's also a good rose, that is also a rose, and grafted your own nice looking rose on top. But for as long as you are growing your rose, you need to ensure that that joint is not touching the soil. And secondly, if anything grows below that joint, you would have to cut it off, because it's going to overtake, because it's the original owner of the plant. If it's growing from the rootstock, it's not the one that's grafted. So if it grows on the rootstock for 1 year, let me tell you, your nice looking roses will not be performing anymore, because the rootstock has produced its own shoot, and that's the one it will be feeding right, not the one that's been grafted on it. So those are the things that we consider about having rootstocks on our rose plants. It's just works that way, and it's the same for every plant. I had this pear tree, and it kept on producing more rootstock, and it never took off with the shoot that was on top of it. I don't know if it's still coming back to life or not, but as far as till now, that rootstock, that plant, has not given me any pear. That's just it. Pear shaped. It hasn't given me any pear. Excuse me. My roses are crimson too. Ooh, it's on capital. Right? To take caps lock off. So when we're considering looking after all the different plants in our garden, it's just something that we need to know that we I don't know how to look after everything either. I just have to learn. I'm just making discoveries. I see other people's plants, I see other people's gardens, and I try to understand and learn from them. I get how they are growing it. But the one basic thing that we need is to have um, basic skill of what is going on in our garden, so that if something is going wrong, for example, if you grow your tomatoes and you put it in the soil and you mulch it and you see the tomato leaves changing color, maybe yellow, that means they are getting burnt. You'd need to make sure, maybe you've used mulch that's got nitrogen in it, then you need to clear the mulch out of the way, or make sure you clear the leaves so that the leaves is not touching the base of the garden bed, because tomatoes need to have a good start in life. If your tomato plant is busy just being made to suffer when it's supposed to be starting off, and you're thinking, oh, it's only May, by the time your tomato now catches on, thank you very much, you're welcome. By the time your tomato now catches on and starts to gain body, other people's tomatoes are already flowering and fruiting, but your own tomato was still busy being allowed to suffer. So you don't want to allow your plants to even suffer any backward pull at all in the first few weeks that you put it into the ground. As soon it's got to land and start running, that's what you want for your plants. So you make sure you grow your tomatoes indoor, and when you plant it out into the garden, it's warm enough for it to be able to grow. If it's not warm enough, you can cover it with some kind of a transparent sheet to keep the place enclosed and warm. You want the best for your tomatoes while they're still young. Don't just be looking and saying, well, I only planted it 2 weeks ago. You didn't just plant it 2 weeks ago, because that tomato itself is about 8 weeks old. So if you just put it outside, you want to start seeing the growth right away, maybe the following week. You need to start seeing that your tomato is doing well. So right from the time you put your tomato into the soil, you have to make sure that you give it the condition that is necessary in terms of temperature and watering. So you don't want it to start drying out and you'll be thinking in your mind, is it dry already? I only just planted it 3 days ago, and then you need to go back and keep watering your garden, because that is all it asks of you. You put it in good quality soil initially, and that is what a plant needs. In fact, there are some times that you can plant your tomatoes in a bed and you don't need to fertilize that tomato bed for the next 2 months. And that is going to take a long, long journey. That means it's already almost at the point where it starts to flower. And that is why they say when you see the first flowers, apply this fertilizer. That's because they expect that when you're packing your soil initially, you should put in so much nutrient that When you put the tomatoes in, the tomatoes you are putting in is about 6 weeks old. It's going to take maybe another 4 weeks before that nutrient can even go a bit down. And it's only a bit, it's not completely used up. So it will start flowering. When it starts flowering and you see this flower in about 2 weeks' time, then they say you should now start giving it more feed. That is because by then the food nutrition inside the soil will be depleting, because tomatoes are very heavy feeders. And when they start flowering, they want to take off. They want to start producing massive fruits. You need to provide the food that they're going to use to go on this journey. So they are not just being prepared and then halfway there's a hole in the tire and they're being deflated. You have to prepare your plants for the flight. You have to make sure that they are well nourished and they are well protected. Because there are times when somebody's, it's happened to me before, when somebody's plant will start growing and is flowered and fruited and is heavily, now it's time for this thing to start ripening and it breaks off. Usually, maybe the tip at the top. But even the tip at the top, we have some small tomatoes, and it's only just the beginning of the season. That is a bit of a waste on your yield, because it means your yield has gone down. So your flower needs that physical tying down to a stick. I don't see any tomato plants that one can grow and you say, oh, this tomato plant is determinate, it doesn't need support. The determinate plants that I grew, that I said did not need support, was being supported by the edge of the garden bed. That's it, which was growing just on the ground. It will be all over the floor, meshing inside the soil. So it means it needed support. It was just supported by the edge of the garden bed. And when I saw this, I just put a little stake to, to lift it up so that it's not actually too far from the soil, because as a determinate tomato, it was very, very short. It was very close to the ground. And so people will say, oh, this one doesn't need support. This one, every tomato plant would need some form of support, so that you need to be prepared. And when you plant your tomato 1 year and you have the sticks, don't throw them away. You need to keep your sticks. Keep the sticks so that you can use it again the following year. You can rinse the soil off it, put it together in a pile, stand it up against the wall in one corner. And how long does it take before you would be calling upon your sticks again? It won't be long, believe me, as the Lord wills. You find out, oh, yeah, another time has come. I need to use this stick to support this plant. If you are throwing away the sticks that you are using to support your plants, that's, in fact, I don't even think I've seen anyone who's done that to before. But it's something that just needs to be mentioned in case some people do it. You don't throw away the stick, you're going to use it again the following year. Those bamboos that you buy from the shop, and then you now say, I spent this amount on my gardening, I spent the other amount on my gardening. You don't need to keep buying new bamboo every year to support your tomato. You don't need to keep buying new pots every year to start your seedlings. You just rinse out your old pot, disinfect it if you wish. In my own case, my pots will sometimes have soil in them anyway, so there's nothing to disinfect because it has soil and it's still been breathing. It's got holes, so it's not as if water has stayed and it has started to develop a kind of unhealthy condition. It's had water passing through all year long. It doesn't need to be washed over and over and over. But what I'm just trying to put across as a stress, your pots do not need to be thrown away and replaced every year. You can keep them. You can keep the pots to start new plants. And you can also have pots from people that are buying pots for just decorations, and they are not going to be starting seeds, because there are some people who just buy maybe flowers and things. They have a lot of them. They're not even usually the smaller type. They are a bit bigger. You can have those ones for plants that will stay in pots that aren't so big. I use those kind of pots for the plants that I want to give away. It's not so big. put something in it. It's not massive. If you give it to someone, it's easy to transport. It's not like one of those 20-inch pots. It's more compact than that. So if I plant a tomato or two in it, then somebody can have that and take it away. It's very useful for that kind of for purpose. But if you have smaller ones, bigger ones, just keep them. You can use them again the following year, because that's what it is about gardening. Doesn't say go and buy another one and buy another one and buy another one. You can use the ones that you've used before. It's just like when industrialized farming budgeting millions of dollars for fertilizers, and I'm thinking in my mind, oh God, these fertilizers are freely around us. All the leaves, all the food waste, all the trees that are falling, all the things that are dying, you can just use all of this as your fertilizers. And that brings me to using fertilizers in our garden. Yes, you can go to the shops and buy fertilizers and use in the garden, but first you must have something to start off, so that when you are trying to plant your bed, you probably have some chicken poo, earthworm poo, compost, fish head, chicken bones, eggshells, banana peels, plantain peels, peanuts, casings, grounded. I've got my peanut casings. All the peanuts that I've eaten, I've been grounding them for the beginning of the year. I'm going to show you, because it's not difficult to keep these things. This is the casing of all the peanuts that I've eaten this year. Just one day, not really doing anything, free time, I just brought it out and blended them. So all those things that are organic, the rule is that if it lived before, it can live again. All the parts of a living thing can be put into the soil, apart from animals. They can be put into the soil to, to help your plants grow. But what you must consider in the case of animal products, you don't want to use the fat, because that will overpower the system, the ecosystem of the soil. But if you are going to now put in anything into the soil, you are going to have to bury it. For example, when you use a fish, you are not putting the fish in your compost. You don't put fish in your compost. You put fish buried in the soil. You are not going to be uprooting it and stirring it and mixing it. It's buried in the soil. It stays there. And whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's it about using um, fish or any other animal. It stays deep down, buried. You are not using it in compost. So it's not going to be coming back and getting rooted up by some small possums that are in the neighborhood. It's buried properly, cover the place for a few days. By the time any animal is coming along, you don't even have any trace of a smell of where it was. They probably have to just go and look for satellites to discover the place. They will find out that there is nowhere they can get meat in the garden anyway. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's just not for um let me put this on the table. Okay, so it's just not um for the fun of it that we use fertilizers in the garden. You use fertilizers because it is needed after you have used all the waste food. That's what all the skin of all those fruits are meant for. That's why I enjoy eating a lot of fruits so I can have a lot of skins, a lot of rains, a lot of seeds, put them all in together, and your soil is happy. When I have those ones and they say, oh, the things will be growing in your soil because it has seeds. When the seeds will grow, it won't reach any length before it will die. So that's why I don't mind throwing even their seeds in my soil. I do that because I'm going to keep it covered, I'm going to keep turning it, keep it under the leaves, so that even when they grow, they germinate, their body will now have more substance to it because they've taken some energy from the sun to germinate, and also they burst out of their seed pack. It's more accessible to my compost if the seeds decide to germinate. That is my own thing about seeds in compost. They won't come out and go because my compost takes, somebody and I were talking and I said 6 months. But then I've realized that my compost actually takes about 8 months in the soil, in the compost bin before it comes out. So all those seeds will be grown and dead because after they have grown and they have no light, they will die. They will die there in the compost, and that is it, they're gone. And I see that the soil will be more enriched than if I was just saying, oh, I don't want plants with seed, I don't want plants with seeds, and I'm taking those ones and eliminating them. There won't be any plants that I will be using. The only plants I don't put in my compost are those plants that have thorns. For example, the vine of my berries. And there's also another plant across the road. It's just vines and vines and vines, just disturbing the whole place there. So I got there, I cut it down. It's got thorns. I just pack it up carefully and take it and put it into the a big water pot filled with rainwater, along with the rest of all the leaves that I put in, the comfrey and all of them together. I just put them all in, waiting for spring. By the time I'm taking these things out in spring, all those things will be strands, all those thick vines that had leaves on them. There won't be any more leaves on them. I will just see some yellowish vines at the bottom of the water. And I can now lift this and throw it into the compost bin. And that's start another set of composting starts again. Because that vine that has been stripped of all as to make its way into the compost bin after about 6 months in the water, when I want to start using the water to wet my garden. That's what I would do. I would put that into the compost bin and I would use the water. The water would have a bit of green here, a bit of green there. I would just use it to wet the garden and they can all stay on as much. Sometimes, if it's looking as if it needs to be sieved, I can use a sieve basket to get into the water thing and collect all those debris before I start filling my bucket for watering can. And that is for because I want to fertilize because I don't water with a watering can. Because watering with a watering can is too much work. It's labor. So please, you should If your garden, if you have to wet with more than three watering cans or more than two, if you have to be using up to three, please you need to find a way to have a thing outdoors. Maybe it's rainwater will be falling in it, and then you can use a hose to get that into your garden bed, or you rig up another way of wetting your garden, because a garden has to be watered and you have to plan how you're going to water your garden ahead. You don't wait until, okay, what are we going to use to wet this garden? You need to have that plan already made. When that is already made, when it's time to start wetting the garden, you just slot it in. Everything is already in its position, and that's just great. That's how it works. You don't go running around and thinking, what am I going to do next? Because you have all those things already laid out. I said before, I have all my plans like laid out in month by month. I know when one plant goes into the soil. I know when one plant needs a certain action and the other. And it's not by season anymore. It's by what month do I need to do this? Usually now, usually up till this year, I take down my tomato plants middle of October. I'm not going to be doing that anymore. I'm going to be taking down my tomato plants at the end of September, so that by the first day of October, any tomato plant that is not ready, oh, it's going to have a struggle before I will not take it down. I'm, I'm going to be targeting taking them down at the end of September, so that I can still have my garden to grow some green. Because I can't go out and be growing now that it is cold. So I should have grown before the cold became this harsh. So that's one lesson that I've learned this year. I'm going to grow my winter or my fall garden as early as October. And if you're going to grow something in October, you have to have the place cleared. So if I take them all out by 31st, 30th, 38 days of September, by the 30th of September, I take down everything. Then there is space for all my vegetables, and I'm going to start growing them by the end of the first week of October. So I can grow my chives, onions, spinach, whatever will grow, kale, broccoli, the brassicas, and salad greens. I'll spread them out, and that's what I will be harvesting by November, because they will just take about 8 months to grow. They are just leafy um, plants. That's what we will be harvesting from them. So that's the plan that I have for next year, as the Lord would permit. I pray. So we just have to bear in mind to keep the garden plan in tight under a tight rein, so that it comes out looking very rosy. That is what we we are expected to do if we want a garden that is lucrative, a garden that produces very well. Because right now my garden bed, I just cover it, because I'll say, oh, I don't want to go and be planting something in the cold. So let me eat more fruits. Everybody eat fruits. That's what we need. We need to be eating the fruits, not just using them to decorate our fruit bowls. So it's always so you always have it in mind. So you color your fingers green. Because nobody has green fingers. This my green fingers, they were brown and I colored them. And we can all do that. It doesn't take effort. You can color it one at a time, one plant at a time. Mhm. That's what it takes. But it's up to each and every one of us. If we all eat, we're eating something that somebody has grown. Okay, in a lot of developments, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like," but you like to eat. If everybody said, "I don't like gardening," there wouldn't be anything for us to eat. So then there'll be nobody to grow anything. And then you leave food gardening, you go to maybe compost or worm farming. Those are all different aspects of gardening. This poem is nice. Mm. It's the last piece of the pomegranate. Using nature to look after our garden is an important aspect that may come along if it happens without us pushing it, because it happened in my own garden that although I haven't done anything to set up the birds to be in place, but I usually would hear birds singing, making all their different sounds as they, and some of them would fly into my garden. I bought this water bath. I probably didn't even recognize what it was when I got it. I just saw that this thing is heavy. I thought it was the base of a pot until I saw a water bath in somebody's garden. And then I thought, okay, this thing could be, I could just put water in it. It was at the base of a pot before. And I just thought, oh, I could put water in it. And I put water in it. And you see squirrels coming along to drink. You'd see birds coming along to drink. And I just have to wash it and put water in it again. It doesn't have to be every day. And so I have a whole host of birds just coming along, and all those pests, they know how to be careful. So they pick out all those slugs, pick them out because they come early in the morning, and the slugs are still busy junketing around, thinking they get eaten by the birds. That's one way of using nature teach. You put certain things in your garden that would help you. Or you can tie together like some bamboo sticks, very narrow ones, and just place it on the ground in dry areas of your garden, and bees and other insects will go there to rest. Because I often see the bees sleeping in my garden. The first time I saw a bee sleeping, I thought, oh, this bee is dead, and I was touching it, and it was, oh my, this bee is dead. And I touched it again, and it just went flying. Vroom. Oh, no, 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 it didn't go flying. Vroom. That wasn't. It just went, yeah, it went flying, but it hit something because it wasn't yet awake. Yeah, it flew into the next stem of the yucca plant because it just wanted to rush away from the fact that I was touching it. So as it went flying like that, it hit the yucca plant. And then I realized that this bee was actually asleep. And I felt so sorry. And I thought, oh. So I saw another one again. I recorded both of them. So after that, I've had this that okay, we can create homes for bees in our garden where they can stay without it being their bee home where there will be many. So you can just have maybe one or two bees. If it finds that corner, you can rest there and then go away again, because those bees work so hard, they can get so tired that they can't fly home. I've seen it happen, and that's what I'm talking about. The bees need to be looked after, and the other insects that are pollinators. The butterflies come along and they're very pretty, but one thing that I'll still maintain is butterflies are just as pretty as they look, not further, because they would be laying eggs in your garden and your garden is at risk. So you don't want to welcome them too long. That's why I'm very happy that the birds are there, because when they can hear the birds, they know how to be careful. They just dance around a bit and off they go. They won't be trying to lay eggs. And I keep my eyes open for their eggs. I mean, their larvae. Because once you have the larva in your garden, it's going to eat up all the leaves. Eat up the leaves. That means your vegetable bed is damaged. So you want to keep an eye out for the butterfly larva in your vegetable garden. You use a barrier, that is a net. So you can have a net that you've knocked onto some sort of cage and place it over your green leaves, or you just drape it over it. That's how I do my strawberries, so that even if they come along, they can't really reach the strawberries, because they would experience as if they're getting captured when they come across the net. It's not as if they can pass through it, but they are not aware what is trying to hold them. So if they touch the body of the net, they will fly back. They won't go in through the place and try to risk it. They will think there's some danger and they will go away. That's what the butterflies will do if they come across your garden net. They will definitely run back. They won't stay. They will run back. And the mission is accomplished by having the net in place. The mission is probably accomplished. You don't have anything with the net being in place or something. It's just to your own disadvantage for them to be eating eating your garden at their pleasure. That's not welcome at all. Not welcome at all. Mm, okay. All these things are different ways that we can grow different we can grow certain plants that are not just going to be there for 1 year. You can grow berries. Berries, once you grow a berry, you need to look for a certain portion of your garden, grow berries in it, and it's going to keep coming back year in, year out. The canes, new canes will come because the main root of the berry is in the ground. You can have strawberries, those are very small, they require more work. But blackberries, that's a big bush, they require a bit of space. Tay berries, that's a mix of blackberry and some other berry. Not too big a bush, but these fruits are sweeter. And with the case of blackberry, you usually would have a blackberry bush not too far away. It depends on where you're living. Where I live, There's a blackberry bush less than 100 meters from here, so we can always get blackberry. So we'll have blackberries. We just go for an outing and pick some berries and come back home. That's how it is. But we have to grow the other berries. We have to grow our own tea berries. It looks pretty much like the blackberry. It's just that it's sweeter and doesn't got seeds, because the blackberry in the forest is actually seeded. So we're trying to attain a berry that's single seed. That's what we get with the tea berry. So when you have plants and they are now welcome, domesticated in your garden, they are more tenable for you to eat. They are not um, as harsh. So when you're eating the wild blackberry that's from the forest, it's harsher to eat than the one that you're growing in your garden. That's just what happens with the case of the blackberries. It's so to everybody, I'll be getting my cam very soon, and this video will be much clearer, so you'll be able to enjoy a better view sometime from next week, hopefully. We'll have to set up this show and make it our own. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presence, and yeah, it's very much appreciated. And it's all just about not just managing to survive, but being conquerors of whatever we lay our hands on. Just managing, that's not what life is about. That's not what we are here for. We're supposed to be actually on top of everything. You can't just be managing to survive. You have to take control. You have to take ownership of all that has been given around you. That's why if you have the sun and you have a bit of land, you can actually be happy and live a fulfilled life. That's why a lot of people are getting into homesteading. Some people are not happy about that anymore. But I think everybody has what they want. If they want to live in a homestead and be able to provide their own things for themselves, then they should be able to. But very soon, there will be so much regulation that the people that are going into homesteading will they will soon be under. But before that, please enjoy it. People who are in homesteading or who are not in homesteading and you want to make your home a homestead, you can do it right there in the city. Make your life convenient, comfortable. Produce some of your food. You don't have to produce everything. To produce some of your food, and you see how much that affects the happiness within the family, the joy, the camaraderie that you have within your family. If you're growing some of your food, you're doing a lot of it, brings the family together. It's even just thinking about, oh, these are the tomatoes, now they're ripe, these are the peppers, we have courgettes, we have herbs. Everybody's just like, okay, the herb you used the other day, is it a thyme? Oh, no, 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 the one that was tall and thin. Oh, that is chives. No, it was a bit fatter. I know chives was, oh, wow, yeah, that's green onions. So everybody is just learning, because that is what nature offers. It offers a learning, offers learning. The garden is a teacher. So it will teach you so many things. Teach you so many things. So when you want to grow your plants, you need to be thinking of hope. When somebody puts a seed in the ground, it means the person is expecting that it will grow. If you know this seed will not grow, you are not going to put it in the ground because there will be no point. So, putting a seed in the ground is a measure of hope, is a measure of expectation that you know tomorrow this seed will bear more fruit. This seed will become more seeds. And that's just what happens. That pomegranate that I ate, I'll take one seed from it and plant it. I could make it two or three. They will turn into a tree each one. So if I planted three seeds, I will have three trees. If the weather is conducive and there is space, because those are things you need to consider. I haven't got space to put three pomegranates. So unless somebody comes along who wants it, they plant it in their own place and it will be producing pomegranates just like that. And over the years, it depends on how you feed a pomegranate tree. You feed it well, it will produce tasty seeds. You don't feed it well, it will produce seeds that are sour. It's the feeding, that's it about pomegranate. You let it be well sunned, well fed, it will grow very sweet fruits. That is what a pomegranate plant needs. Just feed it well. It's the same as citrus. Feed it well, feed that plant well, and it will grow very good fruits, tasty fruits. And then when the fruits are setting, let it get very good sun. That means you've already located it where it's sunny. Let it get very good sun, then it will produce tasty fruits. That's what you get from the pomegranates. Mm. If you mm, okay. Next question I have here is growing conditions. That is temperatures. Somebody says if the temperature is low but the sun is shining, my plants are not growing well. If the sun is shining and the temperature is low, it means the sun that is shining is not really reaching the earth as one would expect. Because when the sun reaches the earth, the beam reaches the earth, it comes along with the heat. But if you are in a place that is snowing and the whole place is already cold, it's cold overnight, if the sun comes out in the morning, then it will take some time for the sun to eat up the snow, and this may not even actually be achieved. So it's daylight, you can see yourselves, but the snow is keeping the temperature low. And if the temperature is not at a certain point, which is usually what is good for us humans as well. So I would say something like 25 degrees, because when a room is about 25 degrees, room temperature, that's what we like best. So the temperature has to be a range like 2 to 3 either sides of 25 degrees centigrade. So if it's between 22 and about 28, the plants will grow. But if it's lower than that, the plants will be struggling to grow. In that kind of situation, you would need to use a grow bulb. And when you're using a grow bulb, this thing is a real serious situation. The grow bulb has to be about 4 inches away from your plant. That's like 6 inches away from the pot. But you know that there's usually that gap from your seed inside the pot as well. So even when you are measuring it and you say 6 inches, it's not 6 inches from the pot, 6 inches from the soil, which means it even goes lower again if your seed in level, your soil level inside your pot is very low. So the lights that you do using gardening indoor lights need to be very close for it to be effective. There are usually instruction leaflets in these notebooks, but I've seen some people using these gardening lights, and the gardening light is just about a meter away from their plants. It doesn't work well that way. The light has to be just about 4 to 6 inches away from what you're trying to grow. It has to be really spot on. It has to be really close to it. Because what happens is if you place it further than that, it will get the light, but it won't get the heat. So that's just the situation that is happening in what I described earlier. As somebody who is living where we have a lot of snow on the ground and it's been cold as a result of that snow, but then the sun now comes out in the morning. The sun has this job of heating up the entire atmosphere all the way down. So the heat may not actually get to the ground. So it's still very cold on the ground. Go along the route of using your own lighting. You have to make sure it's very close so that the heat can get to the sun on time. When this heat gets to the sun, it's more useful. I mean, the heat can get to the plant rather, so that the heat can get to the plant right away. The heat coming from your electric source, your lighting source, has to be very close, gets to the plant, and the plant is able to bloom quicker. That is what happens. Why you may have a place and there's a lot, it's daytime and everything, yet your plants are not growing well. It's the distance from the sun, and the whole place is cold because of the snow. So you may want to use something to heat up the surroundings. It's not easy to heat up somewhere outdoors. So a glass house might work. A glass house might work. Yeah, but that's just about it. Okay, I would. Yeah, so the placements of the plants have to be close to the heat source. That's it. Mm. Mm, let me say the person playing around here. Okay, then. Mm. What do we talk about next? Mhm. Okay. Does anybody have something to say? Is there anybody who's actually wants to say something? And it's bye bye, so that I can go and see what's happening. Tony's Little Farmer's Farm.